আমরা বড় হয়েছি আলোচ্য অংশটুকুতে এই কবি কি বলতে চেয়েছেন from a reader's point of view this is needless. Just a word can be a part of poetry, a full piece of poetry. That's what Malana said. And Jivananda Das's just one line can be a great poetry. Shishire Shabder Moton Shondha Name. No one has imagined before Jivananda Das made this beautiful, powerful allegory. So we will talk and we will explore gradually his poetry and his works. Let me invite another little angel, Tanisha Chaudhary. I gave her the same task, and let me see. Let me amaze myself along with my audience with her speech and whatever she gathered about Jivananda Das.
Jivananda Das. First of all, who is he? Or who was he? Jivananda Das was a Bengali poet, writer, novelist and essayist, born on the 17th of February 1899. Dimly recognized during his lifetime, today he is acknowledged as the premier poet of post-Tagorian literature in India and Bangladesh. He is considered as Bengal's greatest modern poet and best-loved poet too, his poems being regarded as part of the Bengali consciousness on both sides of the border between India and Bangladesh. Jivananda Das wrote ceaselessly, but as he was an introvert and the most alone of Bengali poets, he compelled to suppress some of his most important writings or to locate them in the secret life. During his lifetime, only 7 of his volumes were published. After his death, it was discovered that apart from poems, he wrote several novels and a large number of short stories. His unpublished works are still being published. His philosophy. According to Jivananda Das, poetry and life are 2 different outpouring of the same thing. Life as we usually conceive it contains what we normally accept as reality. But the spectacle of this incoherent and disorderly life can satisfy neither the poet's talent nor the reader's imagination. Poetry does not contain a complete reconstruction of what we call reality. I found this quote particularly fascinating as Jivananda talks about how he believes that poetry and life are not so different from each other. He says that life is only how we imagine it to be, and the way we interpret poems is not so different. Jivananda scholar Clinton B. Seeley has termed Jivananda Das as Bengal's most cherished poet since Rabindranath Tagore. Many, on the other hand, find his poetry very confusing and difficult to comprehend. Indeed, Jivananda Das's poetry is sometimes an outcome of profound feeling, painted in imagery of a type not always understandable. Sometimes the connection between the sequential lines is not obvious. In fact, Jivananda Das broke the traditional circular structure of poetry, introduction, middle, end, and the pattern of logical sequence of words, lines, and stanzas. Consequently, the thematic connotation is often hidden under a rhythmic narrative that requires careful reading between the lines. Jivananda conceived a poem and molded it up in the way most natural for him. When a theme occurred to him, He shaped it with words, metaphors, and imagery that distinguished him from all others. Jivanananda's poetry is to be felt rather than merely read or heard. A sense of time and history is an unmistakable element that has shaped Jivanananda Dash's poetic world to a great extent. However, he lost sight of nothing surrounding him. Unlike many of his peers who blindly imitated the renowned Western poets in a bid to create a new poetic domain and generated spurious poetry, Jivanananda Das remained anchored in his own soil and time, successfully assimilating experiences, real and virtual, and producing hundreds of unforgettable lines. His intellectual vision was thoroughly embedded in Bengal's nature and beauty. Some examples of his works are Bonalata Shen, written in 1942, Shakti Tar Timir, Darkness of Seven Stars, written in 1948, and Ruposhi Bangla, Bengal the Beautiful, written in 1934, published posthumously in 1957. This great poet died on the 22nd of October, 1954, 8 days after he was hit by a tram. The witnesses say that although the tram whistled, he did not stop and got struck. Some deem the accident as an attempt of suicide. I will now recite one of his poems, in English for our non-Bengali friends. It's called Banglar Mukh, which means the face of Bengal. It's the fourth sonnet from Ruposhi Bangla, and it talks about how Bengal's beauty is incomparable to the beauty of the world, its power and uniqueness, and how it's different but special in its own way. Banglar Mukh. I have seen Bengal's face. That is why I do not seek beauty of the earth anymore. I wake up in the dark and see the dawn's magpie robin perched under the parasol-like huge leaf of the fig tree. On all sides I see mounds of leaves of black plum, banyan, jackfruit, oak, pineapple laying still. Their shadows fall on the spurred bushes and cedary clumps. Who knows where Chandler Champa from his Madhuga boat saw such oaks, banyans, gamboos, blue shades, Bengal's beauty, incomparable. Bahula too someday, floating on raft on Ganga's water, when the full moon of the tenebrous 12th night died on the river shore, saw countless pipers and banyans to Amara, when she danced like a torn wagtail in Indra's court.
Please join me in welcoming Anvita Kishore.
Jivanananda Das was a Bengali poet, writer, professor, novelist and essayist. He was born in February 1899 in Borishal, Bangladesh. He was and still is called Rupashi Banglar Kobi, which in Bengali means the poet of beautiful Bengal. He studied English literature in Presidency College, which is in Kolkata, and also in Kolkata University. Afterwards, he started teaching in colleges and suffered financial problems throughout his experience. Jivanananda Das passed away in late October 1954 after being hit by a tram car. One of his most famous poems is called Bonalata Shen, which is one of the most recited and read Bengali poems in the world. The poem is translated to, "For thousands of years I have walked the world, from the Sinhala Sea to the Malay Sea, in the darkness of Nishid. I've been around a lot, in the grey world of Ashoka of Bimbisara. There I was, farther into the dark city of Vidarbha. I am a weary soul, an ocean of life all around. Natur's Banalata Shen gave me great peace." Many say that this lyric was written as a romantic lyric, as it means he loves Banalata Shen with all his heart and she brought him peace. Another one of his most famous poems is called Bod. The first verse is translated to, "Into the half light and shadow I go, within my head, not a dream, but some sensation is at work. Not a dream, not peace, not love. Inside my heart a sensation is born. I cannot escape it, for it places its hand in mine, and all else pales to insignificance futile, so it seems. All thought, an eternity of prayer, seems empty, empty. The meaning of this poem is unclear, however the lyric relates to a lot of pain and loneliness. Jivanananda Das was even mentioned in many different songs to do with Bangladesh, such as the song called Shono Ekti Mojibor Theke. Jivanananda Das was and still is known as one of the greatest poets in Bengali language, and always will be. He expressed his true feeling of the world through poems and literature. He will always be remembered through his poems and in our hearts.
Thank you, Anvita. Please put your hands together again for Anvita. Ladies and gentlemen, I also would like to tell you about some of our future events before we go to next performance. Before we start doing it, could you also put your hands together for Monty, who will be doing all those jobs relentlessly from behind the scene. Shaheen, Mithuli, and Shikaba, and if you think that this is a wonderful way to enjoy your evening, please leave your details, personal details, with Shikaba, so that we can update you about our future events. And I'm sure through poetry, through meaningful, pure music, you will have your best time with Shodha's future events. So, something which is coming very soon in Poplar Union, not far away from here, 8th of March, Sunday, in Poplar Union, and there is a celebration of International Women's Day through British Bengali women, through insightful talk, moving music, dazzling dance, poetry reading, and feminist issues. Nari Chaitanya presents this event, and that is starting at 4 p.m. So please come and celebrate this great day, International Women's Day. And then Bengali New Year, 3-day celebration of Bengali New Year. Please put your hands together to organize it. So this is starting on 12th of April, the city on 13th of April at 6 p.m. And then the finale of the celebration is happening in Poplar Union on 14th of April. And also, this is a phenomenal event by Shodha itself. Those who are familiar with Shodha's event, you know that we try to develop a different communication to connect, to develop the audience for mainly Indian classical music through amalgamation of classical music with other meaningful art form. So this is a unique event, reinterpretation of Frida Kahlo. I'm sure those who, most of you are familiar with this great Mexican surrealist painter, Frida Kahlo. It could have been better if we could do it as part of International Women's Day, because she has a suffered soul. She was suffering from stern patriarchy, and most of her painting is the reflection of the pain she was going through. And we tried to develop interpretation of this painting through some raga and Indian classical music is mostly melancholic, especially Vimpalesri, Bhagesri. Those great ragas will interpret this music, and that will be presented by the best of genres. So please come, 18th of April, just the venue is just the opposite to this venue, studio, Richmond Studio. Frida Kahlo's event, reinterpretation of Frida Kahlo through Indian classical music, 18th of April at 7 p.m. And also, this year, Baul and Bushra Music Festival coming to London on 29th, 30th and 31st of May. So 29th, it will be in here, Richmond, 30th in Keats House. So this will be a great exploration for you who likes to explore John Keats poetry, John Keats Museum. There are so many things to explore about Keats in Keats Museum. And the finale of the festival is happening at Poplar Union. So ladies and gentlemen, let me start with the next performance. Our next performance is recitation of one of my favorite Jivananda's poem. But before I invite the performer to come, can I have the privilege to invite the musicians, if you kindly come and join us. Omid Dey will be on keyboard today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Omid Dey, one of the architects of Asian music here in the West. I feel really privileged having such a talented performer as part of Shoulders activities. And then Omi Islam will be on guitar. So they will be with us for the rest of the evening. So the poem that we would like to present now is a phenomenal poem of Jivanananda Das, both, and that is 2 or 3 poems that made me decide what the title of the event will be, which is Suicide, Self-Consciousness. Both is one of those. Such a deep, such a profound poem. One thing I also have to tell you that when you listen to Jivanananda Das, we have to maintain a pure silence to justice those verses. I would like to invite a spoken word artist and a singer, Shobha Das. If you kindly come and present this phenomenal poem of Jivanananda Das. Into the half light and shadow I go within my hand. Not a dream, but some sensation is at work. Not a dream, not peace, not love. Inside my heart, a sensation is born. I cannot escape it. For it places its hand in mine, and all else pales to insignificance, footy. So it seems all thought, an eternity of prayer, seems empty, empty.
my friends, I would like to thank Good evening, my friends. I would like to thank Saudha and Kaisalya Bhai for giving me this opportunity to read Jivanananda's poem in front of you. Since my childhood, I'm really very much influenced by Jivanananda's poetry, and it continues till now. Both is very close to my heart. I hope you will like it. আলো অন্ধকারে যায়, মাথার ভিতরে স্বপ্ন নয়, কোন এক বোধ কাজ করে। স্বপ্ন নয়, শান্তি নয়, ভালোবাসা নয়, হৃদয়ের মাঝে এক বোধ জন্ম লয়। আমি তারে পারি না এড়াতে, সে আমার হাত রাখে হাতে, সব কাজ তুচ্ছ হয়, পণ্ড মনে হয়। সব চিন্তা প্রার্থনার সকল সময় শূন্য মনে হয়, শূন্য মনে হয়। সহজ লোকের মতো কে চলিতে পারে, কে থামিতে পারে এই আলোয় আঁধারে? সহজ লোকের মতো, তাদের মতন ভাষা কথা কে বলিতে পারে আর? কোন নিশ্চয়তা কে জানিতে পারে আর? শরীরের স্বাদ কে বুঝিতে চায় আর? প্রাণের আহ্লাদ সকল লোকের মতো কে পাবে আবার? সকল লোকের মতো বীজ বুনে আর স্বাদ কই, ফসলের আকাঙ্ক্ষায় থেকে শরীরে মাটির গন্ধ মেখে, শরীরে জলের গন্ধ মেখে, উৎসাহে আলোর দিকে চেয়ে চাষার মতো প্রাণ পেয়ে কে আর বহিবে জেগে পৃথিবীর পরে? স্বপ্ন নয়, শান্তি নয়, কোন এক বোধ কাজ করে মাথার ভেতরে। পথে চলে পারে পারে উপেক্ষা করিতে চাই তারে, মরার খুলির মতো ধরে আছড়ে মারিতে চাই। জীবন্ত মাথার মতো ঘুরে, তবু সে মাথার চারিপাশে, তবু সে চোখের চারিপাশে, তবু সে বুকের চারিপাশে। আমি চলি, সাথে সাথে সেও চলে আসে। আমি থামি, সেও থেমে যায়। সকল লোকের মাঝে বসে আমার নিজের মুদ্রা দোষে আমি একা হতেছি আলাদা। আমার চোখেই শুধু ধাঁধা, আমার পথেই শুধু বাধা। জন্মিয়াছে যারা এই পৃথিবীতে সন্তানের মতো হয়ে, সন্তানের জন্ম দিতে দিতে যাহাদের কেটে গেছে অনেক সময়, কিংবা আজ সন্তানের জন্ম দিতে হয় যাহাদের, কিংবা যারা পৃথিবীর বীজ খেতে আসিতেছে চলে, জন্ম দেবে বলে, তাদের হৃদয় আর মাথার মতন আমার হৃদয় নাকি? তাহাদের মন আমাদের মতো নাকি? তো তবু কেন এমন একাকী? তবু আমি এমন একাকী। হাতে তুলে দেখিনি কি চাষার লাঙল, বালতিতে টানিনি কি জল, কাস্তে হাতে কতবার যাইনি কি মাঠে, মেছোদের মতো আমি কত নদী ঘাটে ঘুরে আছি। পুকুরের পানাশালা আষ্টে গায়ের ঘ্রাণ গিয়েছে জড়ায়। এই সব স্বাদ এসব পেয়েছি আমি, বাতাসের মতো অবাধ বইছে জীবন। নক্ষত্রের তলে শুয়ে ঘুমাইছে মন একদিন। এই সব স্বাদ জানিয়াছি একদিন, অবাধ অগাধ চলে গেছে ইহাদের ছেড়ে। ভালোবেসে দেখিয়াছি মেয়ে মানুষেরে, অবহেলা করে আমি দেখিয়াছি মেয়ে মানুষেরে, ঘৃণা করে দেখিয়াছি মেয়ে মানুষেরে। আমারে সে ভালোবাসিয়াছে, আসিয়াছে কাছে, উপেক্ষা সে করেছে আমারে, ঘৃণা করে চলে গেছে। যখন ডেকেছি বারে বারে ভালোবেসে কাছে, তবু সাধনা ছিল একদিন এই ভালোবাসা। আমি তার উপেক্ষার ভাষা, আমি তার ঘৃণার আক্রোশ অবহেলা করে গেছি। যে নক্ষত্র নক্ষত্রের দোষ আমার প্রেমের পথে বারবার দিয়ে গেছে বাধা, আমি তা ভুলিয়া গেছি। তবু এই ভালোবাসা ধুলো আর কাদা। মাথার ভিতরে স্বপ্ন নয়, প্রেম নয়, কোনো এক বোধ কাজ করে। আমি সব দেবতারে ছেড়ে আমার প্রাণীর কাছে চলে আসি। বলি আমি হৃদয় রে, সে কেন আনার মতো ঘুরে ঘুরে একতা কথা কয়? অবসাদ নাই তার, নাই তার শান্তির সময়, কোনো দিন ঘুমাবে না। ধীরে শুয়ে থাকিবার স্বাদ পাবে নাকি? পাবে না আহ্লাদ মানুষের মুখ দেখে কোনোদিন, মানুষের মুখ দেখে কোনোদিন, শিশুদের মুখ দেখে কোনোদিন। এই বোধ শুধু এই স্বাদ পায় সে কি অগাধ অগাধ। পৃথিবীর পথ ছেড়ে আকাশের নক্ষত্রের পথ চায় না সে। করেছে শপথ দেখিবে সে মানুষের মুখ, দেখিবে সে মানুষের মুখ, দেখিবে সে শিশুদের মুখ। চোখে কালো শিরার অসুখ, কানে যেই বধিরতা আছে, যেই কুজ গলগণ্ড মাংসে ফলিয়াছে, নষ্ট শশা পচা চাল কুমড়ার ছাঁচে, যেসব হৃদয়ে ফলিয়াছে সেই সব। থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ।
Many thanks, Shobana. It's very hard to, I find always hard to explain this kind of poetry. The loneliness he delineated through the verses can't be expressed in words. And whenever I try to read Jivaranda Das, I always try to recall what T.S. Eliot said when he was introducing St. Jean Paul's poetry, French Nobel laureate poet. his obscurity, poetic ambiguity can't be expressed in words. And he said, just read 10 times, 20 times. And whenever you try reading more and more, the door for the meaning will start opening. And both is perhaps one of those great poems by Jivanananda Das I read. I can't remember how many times I read, and more I read, the more I decode different meanings. And many thanks for this beautiful, beautiful recitation. Our next performer is Nandita Mukherjee. She sings mainly Tagore song, and it was very hard to give a musical interpretation for these verses. These verses, mainly Jivanananda Das's poetry and read poetry, written in Akkhar Britta, a very observing chanda, a very, I mean, যারা বাংলাতে আছেন আপনারা জানেন যে যুক্তাক্ষরগুলোকে এমন অক্ষরবৃত্তের ছন্দটাই এরকম যে যুক্তাক্ষরগুলোকে এমন ভাবে অ্যাবজর্ব করে ফেলে এটা ঠিক সঙ্গীতে যখন কোনো সুরকার এটাকে সুর দিতে চাইবে that is almost impossible. And I'm very grateful to some composers who at least tried to give a musical interpretation of these verses. At least I'm sure, although it will not be purely musical, but you'll have a taste of musical interpretation of those verses. Nandita will sing a phenomenal but very popular verses of Jivanananda Das. এবং এখানে 4টা লাইন আছে, এটা বোধহয় সমস্ত বাঙালিরা জানেন। কে হায় হৃদয় খড়ে বেদনা জাগাতে ভালোবাসে, হাই চিল সোনালি ডানার ছেল। This is a poem Jivanananda Das wrote being influenced by a great English poet, Yeats, W.B. Yeats. Yeats wrote almost similar poem. And I'm just reading this translation, but let me tell you honestly, I'm not happy with this translation. Sometimes when I read translation, I felt sometime to do translation by myself, and perhaps this is a future task for me whenever I will plan Jivanananda Das's event again. O kite, golden winged kite, on this overcast, wet afternoon, cry no more as you fly by the Dhanchari river. Your cry brings to my mind her sad, backfruit eyes. Like old princes fair, she has taken her bloom to some remote land. Why recall her? Who, alas, loves digging into the heart to work up woo. O kite, golden winged kite, on this overcast wet afternoon, cry no more as you fly by the Dhanchari river. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nandita Mukherjee on the stage.
everyone. Thanks to Shodho and Kaisar Bhai for giving me this opportunity.
seats here still available in that corner. Thank you. Those who came just now, I would like to tell you, share you about how we publicize our event. Because we intend to present the best of Asian art forms, we do not try to bring you in our venues through push strategy, because that is an insult to the artists we invite. That is an insult to the best art form we try to present. So if you think that this is a wonderful way to enjoy your evening, please leave your details with Shikapa, and we will be, I guarantee you, I promise you that we will be as discreet as possible in terms of sending you emails, and your details will be dealt with due code of confidentiality. So ladies and gentlemen, our next performance is again recitation, and that is again a groundbreaking poem of Jivanananda Das. That resonates all melancholic poets of world literature. And that's why perhaps some of the academicians suggested Jivanananda Das's accident was purely a suicide, because he wrote this poem and some of the poems that also echoes similar theme. And this one is Aat Bochhor Ager Ekdin. The poem will be performed by a popular newscaster, a poet, spoken word artist, Tanjina Nouri Siddiq. Aat Bochhor Ager Ekdin. I'm reading just 2 or 3 verses from that poem. It was heard they took him to the morgue last night in the February dark, when the crescent moon, 5 days towards full, had set. A wife had lain beside him, a child too. So this is perhaps a great discovery for psychologists. Depression may not lead to any visual reason. So a wife had lain beside him, a child too. There had been love, hope in the moonlight. Then what ghost did he see? Why was his sleep disturbed? Or maybe he hadn't slept for days. Now, lying in the morgue, he sleeps. He had sought this sleep perhaps like a plague-racked mouse smeared with faulty blood, next life in the bosom of some dingy cranny. Now he sleeps, never again will he wake.
Thank you, Kaisar Bhai. You made my work more easier. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is my privilege to be here and reading out from Jivanananda Das, my favorite poet, and my sorrow knows no bound that I couldn't meet him because I'm in love with him eternally. So yeah. শোনা গেল লাশ কাটা ঘরে নিয়ে গেছে তারে কাল রাতে ফাল্গুনের রাতের আধারে যখন গিয়েছে ডুবে পঞ্চমীর চাঁদ মরবার হলো তার সাথ বধূ শুয়েছিল পাশে শিশুটিও ছিল প্রেম ছিল আশা ছিল জ্যোৎস্নায় তবু সে দেখিল কোন ভূত ঘুম কেন ভেঙে গেল তার অথবা হয়নি ঘুম বহুকাল লাশ কাটা ঘরে শুয়ে ঘুমায় এবার এই ঘুম চেয়েছিল বুঝি রক্ত ফেনা মাখা মুখে মড়কের ইঁদুরের মতো ঘাড় গুঁজি মাথার ঘুঁজির বুকে ঘুমায় এবার কোনদিন জাগিবে না আর জানিবার অবিরাম ভার সহিবে না এই কথা বলেছিল তারে চাঁদ ডুবে চলে গেলে অদ্ভুত আঁধারে যেন তার জানালার ধারে উঠে গ্রীবার মতো কোনো এক নিস্তব্ধতা এসে তবু তো পেঁচা জাগে গলিত স্থবির ব্যাং আরো 2 মুহূর্তের ভিক্ষা মাগে আরেকটি প্রভাতের ইশারায় অনুমেয় উষ্ণ অনুরাগে টের পাই যুথচারী আঁধারের গাঢ় নিরুদ্দেশে চারিদিকে মশারির ক্ষমাহীন বিরুদ্ধতা মশাতার অন্ধকার সংঘারাম থেকে জেগে উঠে জীবনের স্রোত ভালোবাসে রক্ত ক্লেদ বসা থেকে রৌদ্রে ফের উড়ে যায় মাছি সোনালি রোদের ঢেউয়ে উড়ন্ত কীটের খেলা কত দেখিয়াছি ঘনিষ্ঠ আকাশ যেন কোন বিকীর্ণ জীবন অধিকার করে আছে ইহাদের দুরন্ত শিশুর হাতে হরিণীর ঘন শিহরণ মরণের সাথে লড়িয়াছে চাঁদ ডুবে গেলে বল প্রধান আধারে তুমি অশ্বত্থের কাছে এক গাছা দড়ি হাতে গিয়েছিলে তবু একা একা যে জীবন হরিণের মানুষের সাথে তার হয় না কো দেখা এই জেনে অশ্বত্থের শাখা করেনি কি প্রতিবাদ জোনাকির ভিড় এসে সোনালি ফুলের স্নিগ্ধ ঝাঁকে করেনি কি মাখামাখি থুরথুরে অন্ধ পেঁচা এসে বলেনি কি বুড়ি চাঁদ গেছে বুঝিবে জলে ভেসে চমৎকার ধরা যাক 2-1টা ইঁদুরে বার জানাইনি পেঁচা এসে এ তুমুল গাঢ় সমাচার জীবনে এই স্বাদ সুপক্ক জলের ঘ্রাণ হেমন্তের বিকেলে তোমার অসহ্য বোধ হলো মরকে কি হৃদয়ে জুড়লো মরকে ঘুমোটে একা ইঁদুরের মতো রক্ত মাখা ঠোঁটে শোনো তবু এ মৃতের গল্প বিবাহিত জীবনের স্বাদ কোথাও রাখেনি কোনো খান। সময়ের উৎপত্তনে উঠে এসে বধূ মধু আর মননের মধু দিয়েছে জানিতে। আর আঘাতের গ্লানি বেদনার শীতে এ জীবন কোনোদিন কেঁপে ওঠে না। তাই তাস কাটা ঘরে চিত হয়ে শুয়ে আছে টেবিলের পরে। জানি, তবু জানি, নারীর হৃদয় প্রেম শিশু গৃহ নয় সবখানি। অর্থ নয়, কীর্তি নয়, সচ্ছলতা নয়, আর এক বিপন্ন বিস্ময় আমাদের অন্তর্গত রক্তের ভিতরে খেলা করে, আমাদের ক্লান্ত করে, ক্লান্ত করে। লাশ কাটা ঘরে সেই ক্লান্তি নাই, তাই লাশ কাটা ঘরে চিত হয়ে শুয়ে আছে টেবিলের পরে। তবু রোজ রাতে আমি চেয়ে দেখি, আহা, থুরথুরে অন্ধ পেঁচা অশ্বত্থের ডালে বসে এসে চোখ পাল্টায় কয়, বুড়ি চাঁদ গেছে বুঝি বেনো জলে ভেসে। চমৎকার, ধরা যাক দু একটা ইঁদুরের ঘাড়। আমিও তোমার মতো বুড়ো হব, বুড়ির চাঁদটারে আমি করে দেব কালিদহে বেনো জলে পার। আমরা দুজনে মিলে শূন্য করে চলে যাব জীবনের প্রচুর ভাড়া। থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ।
Thank you, Tanzeen and your recipient. So this is the beauty of Jivanananda Das. It was an amazing reflection of suffered soul, and perhaps a reflection of his personal life as well. Those who know or who read about Jivanananda Das, they are aware of the fact how he was rejected by all intellectual corners of his contemporary time. Shalinikanta Sen was almost, being hostile and doing all those antagonistic work against him. Even Rabindranath Tagore didn't do justice to him. Shudhin Datta, Vishwadev, great Pandit of that time, for some reasons, didn't give that much importance to Jivanananda Das. Buddhadev Boshu is the one who just acknowledged by saying a poet of nature. That's all Buddhadev Boshu said about Jivanananda Das. Such a great, phenomenal poet of 20th century was ignored, rejected. And perhaps this poetry, especially Art Bochor Ager Ekdin, is the reflection of all those rejection came from all different corners. And Tanzeen and Nuri Siddiq, what you said, I'm a big fan of another Swedish filmmaker, surrealist filmmaker, Ingmar Bergman. And I think If Ingmar Bergman could meet Jivanananda Das, it would be a great collaborative work in world art or world literature form. Especially Seventh Seal, the film, like one of the groundbreaking film that Ingmar Bergman has produced and presented to the world. Seventh Seal and Hour of Wolf. I find it a great interpretation of this poem, especially Art Bachor Ager. So those who are from non-Bengali background, I would advise you to watch these two great films by Ingmar Bergman, and that is an interpretation of Jivanananda Das's poetry. That's how I label. Ladies and gentlemen, our next performer is Poppy Shahnaz, a spoken word artist, came all the way from Swindon, and her recitation will also follow with a visual interpretation by Esha Chakraborty Bhattacharya. And Poppy Shahnaz will read a very simple, plain, but very meaningful poem of Jivanananda Das. And that's already translated by two of the little angels, Bangla and Mugh, আমি দেখিয়াছি।
সম্মানিত সুধী, সকলকে অভিনন্দন। জীবনানন্দ দাশ আমার খুবই খুবই প্রিয় একজন কবি, যার প্রকৃতির সৌন্দর্য বর্ণনার মধ্যে দিয়ে দেশকে ভালোবাসা কেন যেন অনেক অনেক বেশি সহজ হয়েছে, অনেক বেশি অন্তরে টাচ করেছে। আর সেই অনুভূতি এবং সেই ভালোবাসার বোধ থেকেই আমি পড়ছি রূপসী বাংলা। আর তার সাথে অবশ্যই আমি কায়সার ভাই এবং সৌধুকে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি, এরকম একটা অপরচুনিটি আমাদের জন্য তৈরি করে দিয়েছেন। পড়ছি রূপসী বাংলা। বাংলার মুখ আমি দেখিয়াছি, তাই আমি পৃথিবীর রূপ খুঁজিতে যাই না। অন্ধকারে জেগে উঠে ডুমুরির কাছে চেয়ে দেখি, ছাতার মতো বড় পাতাটির নিচে বসে আছে ভোরের দোয়েল পাখি। চারিদিকে চেয়ে দেখি পল্লবের স্তূপ, যা বট কাছালে হিজলে অসথে করে আছে চুপ। ধনী মনসার ঝোপে সটি বনে তাহাদের ছায়া পড়িয়াছে। মধুকর ডিঙা থেকে না জানি সে কবে চাঁদ চম্পার কাছে এমনই হিজল বজ তমালের নীল ছায়া বাংলার অপরূপ রূপ দেখেছিল। এই পৃথিবীতে এক স্থান আছে সবচেয়ে সুন্দর করুণ, সেখানে সবুজ ডাঙা ভরে আছে মধুকুপি ঘাসে অবিরল। সেখানে গাছের নাম কাঁঠাল, হিজল, অশ্বত্থ, বট, জারুল। সেখানে ভোরের মেঘে নাটার রঙের মতো জাগিছে অরুণ। সেখানে বারুণী থাকে গঙ্গা সাগরের বুকে। সেখানে বরুণ, কর্ণফুলী, ধলেশ্বরী, পদ্মা জলাঙ্গিরে তাই অবিরল জল। সেইখানে শঙ্খচি পানির বনের মতো হাওয়ায় চঞ্চল। সেইখানে লক্ষ্মী প্যাঁচা ধানের গন্ধের মতো অস্ফুট তরুণ। সেখানে লেবুর শাখা নুয়ে থাকে অন্ধকারে ঘাসের উপর। সুদর্শন উড়ে যায় ঘরে তার অন্ধকারে সন্ধ্যার বাতাসে। সেখানে হলুদ শাড়ি লেগে থাকে রূপসীর শরীরের পর। শঙ্খমালা নাম তার এ বিশাল পৃথিবীর কোন ঘাসে তারে আর খুঁজে তুমি পাবে না গো। বিশালাক্ষী দিয়েছিল বর, তাই সে জন্মেছে নীল বাংলার ঘাস আর ধানের ভিতর। তোমরা যেখানে সাথ চলে যাও আমি এই বাংলার বাড়ি রয়ে যাব। দেখিব কাঁঠাল পাতা ঝরিতেছে ভোরের বাতাসে। দেখিব খয়েরি ডানা শালিখের সন্ধ্যায় হিম হয়ে আসে ধবল রঙের নিচে তাহার হলুদ ঠ্যাং। ঘাসে অন্ধকারে নেচে চলে একবার দুইবার, তারপর হঠাৎ তাহারে বনের হিজল গাছ ডাক দিয়ে নিয়ে যায় হৃদয়ের পাশে। দেখিব মেয়েলি হাত সাদা সকর সাদা শাখা ধূসর বাতাসে শঙ্খের মতো কাঁদে। সন্ধ্যায় দাঁড়ালো সে পুকুরের ধারে, খই রঙা হাঁসটিরে নিয়ে যাবে যেন কোন কাহিনীর দেশে। পরম কথার গন্ধ লেগে আছে যেন তার নরম শরীরে। কলমিরে দামিরে থেকে জন্মেছে সে যেন এই পুকুরের নীড়ে। নীরবে পা ধুয়ে জলে একবার, তারপর দূরে নিরুদ্দেশে চলে যায় কুয়াশায়। তবু জানি কোনদিন পৃথিবীর ভিড়ে হারাবো না তারে আমি। সে যে আছে আমার এই বাংলার তীরে।
আমি দেখি
একদিক জলসরি নদীটির পাড়ে এই বাংলার মাঠে বিশীর্ণ বটের নিচে শুয়ে রব পশমের মতো লাল ঝরিবে বিজন ঘাসে পাকা চা চেয়ে রবে চেয়ে রবে চেয়ে রবে নদীটির জল বাঙালি মেয়ের মতো বিশালাক্ষী মন্দিরের ধূসর কপাটে আঘাত করিয়া যাবে ভয়ে 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 তারপর যেই ভাঙা ঘাটে রূপসীরা আজ আর আসে না গো পাট শুধু পচে অবিরল সেইখানে কলমের দামে বেঁধে প্রেতিনীর মতো কেবল কাঁদিবে সে সারা রাত দেখিবে কখন কারা এসে আম কাঠি সাজায় রেখেছে চিতা বাংলার শ্রাবণের বিস্মিত আকাশ চেয়ে রবে চেয়ে রবে চেয়ে রবে আবার আসিব ফিরে ধান সিঁড়িটির তীরে এই বাংলায়
আবার আসিব ফিরে ধান সিঁড়িটির তীরে আবার আসিব ফিরে ধান সিঁড়িটির তীরে এই বাংলায়
হয়তো মানুষ নয় হয়তো বা শঙ্খ চিল শালিখের বেশে হয়তো ভোরের কাক হয়ে এই কার্তিকের নবান্নের দেশে কুয়াশার বুকে ভেসে একদিন আসি হয়ে কাঁঠাল ছায়া হয়তো বা হাঁস হব কিশোরীর ঘুঙুর রহিবে লাল পায় সারাদিন কেটে যাবে কলমের গন্ধ পড়া জল ভেসে ভেসে আবার আসিব আমি বাংলার নদী মাঠ ক্ষেত ভালোবেসে জলাঙ্গির ঢের ভেজা বাংলার সবুজ গরুর ডাঙা হয়তো দেখিবে যে সুদর্শন উড়িতেছে সন্ধ্যার বাতাসে হয়তো শুনিবে এক লক্ষ্মী প্যাঁচা ডাকিতেছে শিমুলের ডালে হয়তো খইয়ের ধান ছড়াতেছে শিশু এক উঠোনের ঘাসে রূপসার খোলা জলে হয়তো কিশোর এক সাদা ছেঁড়া পালে টিনা পায় রাঙা মেঘ সাঁতরায়ে অন্ধকারে আসিতেছে নেড়ে দেখিবে ধবল আমারই পাবে তুমি ইহাদের ভিড়ে
আবার আসিব ফিরে আবার আসিব ফিরে আবার আসিব ফিরে ধান সিঁড়িটির তীরে
বাংলার নদী মাঠ ক্ষেত ভালোবেসে আবার আসিব ফিরে ধান সিঁড়িটির তীরে এই বাংলা
I am losing my words. Many, many, many thanks for this beautiful visual interpretation. Esha is mainly from Bharatanatyam, a classical genre of Indian dance. She did such a beautiful presentation. I am personally amazed, and I'm amazed by wonderful presentation of wonderful recitation and what contribution Omid did. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for this wonderful and I'm sure you are equally amazed by this wonderful musical accompaniment by Omid and Omi Islam. Please put your hands together. Our next performance is again recitation and recitation of another popular Jibanananda Dash's poem. আমার কাছে মনে হয় those who are from Bengali heritage 20 বছর শব্দটাই জীবনানন্দ কিছু চমৎকার শব্দমালা কমলা লেবুর মতো রোদ এগুলো জীবনানন্দের আগে কেউ ইমাজিনেশনে আসে রোদ দেখেছি কিন্তু এই রোদের মধ্যে যে অরেঞ্জ এটা জীবনানন্দ এবং এই 20 বছর শুনলেই মনে হয় যে কোথায় কার কাছে যেন কথা দিয়েছি 20 বছর আগে অথবা পরে আমাদের নেক্সট পারফর্মার ইজ Sanchita Dash. Sanchita Dash is mainly a TV presenter and a spoken word artist. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sanchita Dash and Sanjay Dash who will give the English translation for non-Bengali audiences. Please welcome Sanchita Dash and Sanjay Dash on the stage.
Good evening. Good evening. I have been given an unenviable task to translate one of the most acclaimed works of Jibanananda. I mean, any translation is difficult, but Jibanananda is especially so. You may ask why. And the names of the flora, the fauna, the phraseology of rural Bengal that pervades almost every poem of the poet, that usage that makes the poem so beautiful and deep and sensitive, makes it also extremely difficult to make it comprehensible to the non-Bengali ear. I mean, imagine translating in Bengali Browning's usage of brushwood, chaffinch, melon flower, or Keats's thatch eaves, hedge crickets, redbreast, or even Edward Thomas's willow herb, haycocks, blackbird. It is difficult, right? I've tried my best, but would have to take shelter in your kind leniency on this matter. This poem is one of the most pathos-seeped works of the poet, deeply melancholic and produces pangs of pain, of separation. The poet ponders if he meets his love of life after 20 years. Imagine for a moment if you meet a lost love after 20 years. Of course, some of us may dread at that thought. This poem always brings a lump to my throat. After hearing this, if there's even one person whose eye moistens or the heart wanders away in some sad thought, I would consider this effort successful. So without more ado, 20 years later, some 20 years later, if I happen to meet her, some 20 years later, maybe beside stalks of rice plants on a November evening, when the evening raven returns home and the yellow river softens itself amid the upright strands of water plants in the meadow. Or maybe there's no more crop left in the fields, no more rush, straws from the duck's nest, straws from the bird's nest, strewn with darkness, cold, and dewdrops in the finch's home. Our lives have gone past 20 years, perchance. Then if I meet you on the rustic path, maybe the midnight moon then appears behind the throng of leaves, carrying thin dark twigs in its teeth, of the frywood or the black plum, of casuarina, mango. 20 years later, you're not on my mind anymore. Our lives have gone past 20 years. Then again, if we happen to meet, you and me, us, maybe then the owl descends crawling on the field in the shadowy paths cast by the bowel's branches, or the windows opened by the fig's boughs. Where does it hide? Where does the kite's wing cease, descending like a silent blink? Oh, golden kite, the dew has hunted and taken it away. 20 years later, in that mist, if I happen to find you,
আবার বছর কুড়ি পরে হয়তো ধানের ছড়ার পাশে কার্তিকের মাসে তখন সন্ধ্যার কাক ঘরে ফেরে, তখন হলুদ নদী নরম নরম হয়, শহরের ঘাস পোগলায় মাঠের ভিতরে, হয়তোবা নাইকো ধান খেতে আর ব্যস্ততা নাইকো আর, হাসির নীড়ের থেকে খড়, পাখির নীড়ের থেকে খড় ছড়াতেছে, মনিহার ঘরে রাত, শীত আর শিশিরের জল। জীবন গিয়েছে চলে আমাদের 20 বছরের পার, তখন হঠাৎ যদি মেঠো পথে পাই আমি তোমারে আবার, হয়তো এসেছে চাঁদ মাঝরাতে এক রাশ পাতার পিছনে, সরু সরু কালো কালো ডালপালা মুখে নিয়ে তার, শিশিরের অথবা জামের ঝাউয়ের আমের। 20 বছরের পর তখন তোমারে নাই মনে, জীবন গিয়েছে চলে আমাদের 20 বছরের পার, তখন আবার যদি দেখা হয় তোমার আমার, তখন হয়তো মাঠে হামাগুড়ি দিয়ে পেঁচা নামে, বাবলার গলির অন্ধকারে অসুখের জানালার ফাঁকে কোথায় লুকিয়ে আপনাকে, চোখের পাতার মতো আমি চুপি ছেড়ে জানা থামে, সোনালি সোনালি চিল শিশির শিকার করে নিয়ে গেছে তারে 20 বছরের পরে। পাই যদি হঠাৎ তোমারে। নমস্কার। অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ আজকে এই অনুষ্ঠানে আমাদের দুজনকে, সঞ্জয় এবং সঞ্চিতা, আমি ডাকার জন্য। থ্যাংক ইউ কাছে।
Many thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together again for the beautiful celebration. Our next performance is recitation again, but with a visual interpretation by dance performance. And that poem is again a phenomenal one of Jivanananda, and my first poem that leads me to the fascination for Jivanananda Das while I was 16 years old boy. গভীর হাওয়ার রাত ছিল কাল, and the visual interpretation will be given by again another acclaimed Bharatanatyam dancer, Sharmishta Pandit, and spoken word performance will be rendered by Manoj Chaudhary, a spoken word artist. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Manoj Chaudhary on the stage. Those who are from non-Bengali background, I'm sure you are getting the beauty of this verses from a language you are perhaps not familiar with. Last night was thick with wind, a time of countless stars. All night long, a vast wind played within my mosquito net. At times, that net swelled like a monsoon sea's belly, tearing loose from the bat every once in a while. It would try to fly to the stars. Now and then it seemed to me, perhaps while half asleep, that there was no mosquito net over my head at all, as it soared like a white heron upon a sea of blue wine, skirting the hip of the star Swati. Last night was such a marvelous night.
গভীর হাওয়ার রাত ছিল কাল, অসংখ্য নক্ষত্রের রাত, সারা রাত বিস্তীর্ণ হাওয়া আমার মশারিতে খেলেছে। মশারিটা ফুলে ফেপে উঠেছে মৌসুমী সমুদ্রের পেটের মতো। কখনো বিছানা ছেড়ে নক্ষত্রের দিকে উড়ে যেতে চেয়েছে। একবার মনে হচ্ছিল আমার আধো ঘুমের ভেতরে হয়তো মশারিটা আমার মাথার উপরে নেই। সাথী তারার কোলে ঘেঁষে নীল হাওয়ার সমুদ্রে সাদা বকের মতো উড়ছে সে। কাল এমন চমৎকার এক রাত ছিল। সমস্ত মৃত নক্ষত্রেরা কালে জেগে উঠেছিল আকাশে, একটির ফাঁক ছিল না। পৃথিবীর সমস্ত ধূসর প্রিয় মৃতদেহের মুখ সেই নক্ষত্রের ভেতরে দেখেছি আমি। অন্ধকারের রাতে অশ্বত্থের চূড়ায় প্রেমিক চিল পুরুষের শিশির ভেজা চোখের মতো ঝলমল করছিল সমস্ত নক্ষত্রেরা। জ্যোৎস্না রাতে ব্যাবিলনের রানীর ঘাড়ের উপরে চিতারে উজ্জ্বল চামড়ার শালের মতো জল জল করছিল বিশাল আকাশ। কাল এক আশ্চর্য রাত ছিল, যে নক্ষত্রেরা আকাশের বুকে হাজার হাজার বছর আগে মরে গিয়েছে, তারা কাল জানালার ভেতর দিয়ে অসংখ্য মৃত আকাশ সঙ্গে করে এনেছে। যে রূপসীদের আমি এশিরিয়ায়, মিশরে, বিদিশায় মরে যেতে দেখেছি, কাল তারা অতি দূরে আকাশের সীমানার কুয়াশায় দীর্ঘ বর্ষা হাতে কাতারে কাতারে দাঁড়িয়ে আছে, যেন মৃত্যুকে দলিত করবার জন্যে। জীবনের গভীর জয় প্রকাশ করবার জন্যে, প্রেমের ভয়াবহ গম্ভীর স্তম্ভ তুলে আনার জন্যে। আড়ষ্ট অভিভূত হয়ে গেছি আমি। কাল রাতের প্রবল নীল অত্যাচার আমাকে ছিঁড়ে ফেলেছে যেন। আকাশের বিরামহীন বিস্তীর্ণ ডানার ভেতর পৃথিবী কিচের মতো মুছে গিয়েছে কাল। উতঙ্গ বাতাস আকাশের বুক থেকে নেমে আমার জানালার ভেতরে দিয়ে সাঁই সাঁই করে সিংহের হুঙ্কারে উৎক্ষিপ্ত হরিত প্রান্তরের অজস্র জেবরার মতন মিশে গিয়েছে। হৃদয় ভরে গিয়েছে আমার বিস্তীর্ণ সবুজ ঘাসের গন্ধে। দিগন্ত প্লাবিত বলিয়ান রৌদ্রের আঘ্রাণে মিলনমুক্ত বাঘিনীর গর্জনের মতো অন্ধকারের চঞ্চল বিরাট সজীব শ্রমস উচ্ছ্বাসে জীবনের দুর্দান্ত নীলমত্ততায় আমার পৃথিবী আজ হৃদয়ে ছিঁড়ে উড়ে গেল। নীল সমুদ্রের হাওয়ায় স্ফীত মাতাল বেলুনের মতো গেল উড়ে। একটা দূর নক্ষত্রের মাস্তুরকে তারায় তারায় উড়িয়ে নিয়ে চলল একটা দুরন্ত স্বপ্নের মতো। গভীর হাওয়ার রাত ছিল ধন্যবাদ।
How beautiful is this? How amazing is this? Many thanks, Manas Chaudhary, Shobishta Pandit, Amit, and Obi Islam. Before I go to the next performance, I would like to invite an academician, a scholar, to give her way of discovering Jibanananda Das. All of a sudden, I came up with an idea to, she's not from literature background, especially, but she has lots of other specialization. But I wanted to find out how their own Jibanananda Das, they built up in their mind. So, our next speaker is Sanjukta Ghosh. She is a Commonwealth Scholarship funded doctorate in modern history from SUAS Department of History, Religion and Philosophy, where she has been a senior teacher fellow now. She is also director of South Asia Institute of SUAS, University of London. She has worked in funded research projects in agrarian history, food politics, technology, and international development. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Sanjukta Ghosh. We would like to discover how her own Jibanananda Das is.
Good evening, everybody. And firstly, I want to thank Saudha Arts for inviting me on this occasion, and a very kind, not only invitation, but an introduction by Kaiser, who I have just started to collaborate for our South Asian Institute Literary Forum, where Kaiser has come and supported our interactions in literature, culture, and arts. So I'm really the artistic director rather than the director of the South Asia Institute in service. Before I begin to, interpret Jibanananda, which is a very tall task, this entire evening I have been completely spellbound, sitting in one corner, listening to very interesting translations by scholars who attempted to translate him, to also read out the very known poetry that I actually collected and I thought I would read out, but the task is over. So you've all now been saturated with Jibanananda's famous poems that I have also grown up reading, not quite understanding everything because the interpretations and the expectations of textual learning still in classrooms in Bengali language departments has been primarily one of two. So the amount of attention that I could give to Jibanananda was very centrally focused on his most famous writing on Ruposhi Bangla, which all of you have now listened to. I don't have to go back to his words and his words, but I'm here to link Ruposhi Bangla with this theme that we have in the evening today, that is about self-consciousness, suicide, and his later works, which were really in the 1940s. And that is something that we have just heard also from Sanchita recently about a day, and how it unfolded his very consciousness about how death should be interpreted. So, 8 বছর আগের এক দিন, one day 8 years ago. It seems to me that he dabbled with time a lot. You know, time has always come back and forth in Jivanananda's writings. Whether it's 8 years ago or 20 years ago he met somebody. So when his manuscripts were discovered from the dusty cupboards by scholars, a very, very close friend of Jivanananda who worked closely with him before he died, found these manuscripts and decided to interpret them something that is early to mid 20th century to later, 1994 was when the grey manuscripts came out in the public sphere. And then the interpretation that came out of this grey Pandulipi was that as if Ruposhi Bangla had its lineage connected to something that he came out 20 years later. Late 20s, when he was going back and forth between his college days in Calcutta to back to Borishal, and he's thinking about writing Bengal at a time when he did not have jobs, he was unemployed. He goes back to Bangladesh to capture the beauty of Bengal's village, thinking about the geography of unity that is just a totality of Bangla, something that has been also interpreted by some scholars as well. But what is interesting here is that even though he is talking about the unity of Bangla, he's also coming back to Calcutta in 1946, similar to what Mujib also did. And these were to plot Jivanananda's writings on the wall for all the non-Bengali writers and audience here to actually understand the connects between his various style of writing, to understand why he was not the ebbing of romantic nature. I am very reminded of my own grandfather always reciting to me, Akash Bhara Shurjo Tara. You know, the connection of Tagore, Tahari Majkhane Ami Peyechi Mor Pran. This life connecting to this worldly, outer worldly space, this unity that romanticism preaches and continues, is the foundation of this romantic ethos. Now, to come out of that would be this very agonizing fear of disconnecting with nature in a way that Tagore could not have done because he left in 1941. He didn't see the Second World War. He didn't see the famine. He also didn't see the naked death of Calcutta killings of 1946, which is the time when Jivanananda comes back to Calcutta. Those who have lived through 1946 cannot but dissociate life from death. And this complexity and this intermingling of life and death continues to grapple and baffle him throughout the period that he writes about, his 1948 poems that we have already recited in this room, and also this 8-year rule, this 8-year poem that he talks about, one day in 8 years ago, is part of what? Mahaprithvi? Written post-war or around war. And so this connection is something I wanted to bring out to all of you and talk to you about how nature in Jivanananda was not just nature as in unity, as in connection with the universe. The theme of the universe dissolves. And might I say that in today's period of climate change, of farmer suicides, of mental illness, of things that we are always grappling with, he couldn't have been more central to our own interpretation and thinking, because this is the time when we do not talk of nature as if it's fearful, as if it's unconquerable, as if it is something that is distant and something that is romantic. We are in this age of when the human footprint on nature has been extremely strong. The Anthropocene age of climate change is when Jivanananda's flow of nature and nature-related writing, as we saw in the way our dancers depicted, this total restlessness, this ethos of up and down, of waves, of temporal scheme of nature, is something that is playing back and forth in a way that is extremely strange and impossible to locate. And because it is impossible to locate, you will find that in his relentlessness, he is in deep agony, a deep ache in which the darkness appears extremely strange. And also, I repeat, Anthropocene age is about nature's connection to not just the universe, but it is about the planet and the planetary consciousness of it. And hence we saw in our dances that you don't just connect to the moon, to the sun, but the materiality of it. Kaiser just mentioned that before him, nobody thought of the orange connecting with the sun's rays. Has anybody thought of playing with the mosquito nets that we had? We had the soul of the toad, the owl that keeps coming back, the ashwatha tree, the plant. It's as if the plant and the insect and the owl, they're not just animals around. There is a profound way to connect with the non-human and the human. And the non-human in his poem takes the form of a soul, a speaker. The protagonist is lost. The poet is deliberately lost. Within voices, we hear voices. The multiplicity and the layered reading of Tagore is not something that the post-agonized romantic generation could figure. Not something that even the famine generation poet who are thinking about a very neat division between class and Marxism that permeated post-1944, between poverty and richness, between wealth and between, say, poverty again. So this kind of a neat division is not there in Jivanananda. Jivanananda is all about flux. It's all about restlessness. It's all about how he is able to continually negotiate with what can be called a liminal position in literature. And I think I want to just conclude here by saying that if during his rise to poetship, Bengali literature was questioning what is aesthetics and what is politics, and what was divided between aesthetics and politics around the time he was rising. Jivanananda gave to this world what was perhaps the first biopolitical poet. That he was able to politicize his nature in a way and negotiate that in a way that he himself blurred between what is Jiva. Jiva is very constantly omnipresent in his writing, and death. Nobody could write about death and his obsession with death in the way he wrote. He endlessly dabbled with death to a point that even some of his closest would say that if his wife died, it would probably help him in the creativity of writing. To this I would say that I'm a great fan of Jivanananda, but it is also the time to think of how he made death so mysterious, that as if when he died in front of the tram, people were bewildered, that in the city of Calcutta never has there been an accident in the way the tram crushed him, and we still don't know whether that was a suicide, a voluntary act, where death itself becomes blurred as if life and death is a continuous circle. It is not something that is a termination, that is an end to a story. So we relive and we relive through his death and his enactment. Could he really have plotted this in his poetry before he even died? He may have scripted this, for all you know. And that is probably up to our future research, something that we will continue to explore, the imageries, the figures, the ideas, the scripts, the people who were around him, perhaps the voices of his friends, and things that are in the grey literary world will come out and emerge to make Jivanananda the first biopolitical poet of late 20th century. Thank you.
Many thanks, Shanjukta, for this profound interpretation of Jivanananda in her own view. Ladies and gentlemen, our next performer is Gauri Chaudhary. Wow. So Srimati Gauri Chaudhary will give you a musical interpretation of some popular verses of Jivanananda Das. Amit and Omi will be on musical accompaniment. Like I told you before, that it's very hard to tie verses of Jivanananda Das musically. I would like to congratulate those composers.
See you later, everybody. I love you all. I've got to go now, so my charger is running down, as you can see. But it's been absolutely wonderful. I'm just telling the story. I love telling the story for different communities, and indeed, thank you all for watching here today. We are in Rich Mix, and indeed, we're in Rich Mix, and well done to this place for creating and exploring programs for different communities, as you can see. So yeah, that's the place over here. So I just thought I'll tell you the story, and this is mainly brought in by I Love You TM Ahmed and your team. I love you so much for the work that you do for your community, and indeed African Wonder Woman was right down there. I'm gonna say goodbye for now, and thank you so much to every single person that has joined in here today, all the way from Kenya. Before my battery goes, and indeed I saw all of you. I need to go back inside, but I just felt I should share with you so much. Ricky Totman, lovely to see you as well. Mel, lovely to see you all the whole night. Jennifer, our lawyer, thank you so much for joining in. Gloria Adadikwe, as usual, lovely to see you. Tom Tukumpo, lovely to see you. Muvali, lovely to see you. Anthony, lovely to see you. Donald Igwebu, lovely to see you. And of course, my wonderful best, one of my great friends, Nina, Dr. Wambeji, Dr. Nina Wambeji, all the way in Mombasa or Nairobi. Lovely to see you as usual. And my great friend, Frank Agri, lovely to see you, and thanks for dropping here. And indeed, it's lovely to see people like, of course, Washu Dirango as well, maybe from America. Lovely to see you. Reverend, lovely to see you as usual. Leda Mutai, and many other people. Marianne Kim, lovely to see you. And it's been a great evening here today, and indeed a mix of bar, and you know what, the studios over here, amazing. Indeed, your one and only model, Juliet at JNM 1000. I'm a model, and of course I'm an African poetician as well, and I'm also a Bollywood person. For those who don't know me, you discover that as well. And indeed, I tell my own stories as well. I write poems, and I do definitely care about my planet. Love for all, love for the whole world, promoting and advocating for that change, and promoting that peacefulness across the universe. Change makers such as myself, we love doing this, we love doing what we do. Indeed, we love you all. That's why we do it. And thank you so much. Well done to TH Ahmed, and thank you for the invite as usual. And keep an eye for the next event. I will be with them, I believe, on the 7th of March, if I'm not mistaken. But keep an eye on those dates. But I will put the flyer, and I'm also going to be speaking. I also enjoy politics, but that's different from here. But community change is what I do, and indeed, with love, spirit, the spirit of Ubuntu, I love you all. Mwah. See you later. Bye-bye. Juliet Mahapila at JNM 1000, African Wonder Woman. Yes, cow foot, I love it. Thank you so much. Mwah. I love it. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. See you later. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for all the comments that have come in as well. I did see them, and I hope I've answered many of your questions. If you'd like to follow some of my work as well, do call me at any time. My telephone number is, if you're calling from abroad, +4477 423 84052. That number again from United Kingdom, 077 423 84052. See you later, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you. I really, really loved it. And I tell you what, it's absolutely amazing to see all of you. See you later, everybody. Bye-bye. I love that. See you later. Bye-bye. See you later. Thank you.